And I
Yeah.
remember a point where, and I just noticed that I asked her to do something and she said no. And I looked at her and I was like, fair play. And I was like,
Yeah.
I remember feeling
Was
like
that?
quite proud that, and I was like, and she did, and she started saying that she did what she could do. And then she
Yeah.
said, I haven't got capacity for anything else. And this was 6 years ago before I even got into all
Yeah.
this. And it sticks with me that she was somebody that thought, I can't keep doing this for everything for everybody else and people pleasing and
Yeah.
saying yes to everything. And obviously had a switch. So yeah, that sort of really stuck with me. But it's important. But one of the best things you can do is say no. And it'll be
Yeah.
hard at first. You'll feel uncomfortable. The people might not be used to saying no, so they might show some negative response to say, what do you mean? But trust me, if you can get used to saying no when you need to, it's not saying no to absolutely everything. Obviously,
No.
if you went into work and said no to
Yeah.
everything, they're gonna.
Yeah. I'm not
But you
doing
know,
that.
but if you say, I'm really at capacity, or you can
Yeah.
even say,
Yeah.
I'm at full capacity at the moment.
Yeah.
If it can wait till next week, then come back to me, or something like that. But just if you get used to doing that, you will see just how much that starts to
Yeah.
free you up, and people start to respect your boundaries then, because boundaries
Absolutely.
is a huge factor in terms of preventing burnout as well.
Yeah. And when it comes to burnout, so we said, how can you recognize the start of the beginning of, because I'm guessing it's slightly different to stress, or is it sort of you start getting stressed and anxious and whatever, and it just builds up from there? Do you know what I mean? How do you tend to say to people to sort of what the signs to look for initially?
So it's really common for people who end up burnt out, even people who've worked in mental health or have a good understanding of
Yeah.
well-being, when you are in the thick of it, you just don't realize just what is happening. And only when you become burnt out and you recover and you look back
Oh,
and you think, all the signs were there, all the signs were there. Why did I not notice them? So it is important if you can really start to
yeah.
recognize the signs before you get there and start putting some of these changes in. And sorry, I keep coughing. And we always say there's sort of three common pillars to burnout, and that's exhaustion,
Yeah.
cynicism, which I'm sure a lot of people will relate to. So we say cynicism or detachment, and
Mhm.
reduced performance. So if you can notice those signs within yourself, so exhaustion isn't just physical exhaustion, so that fatigue, that
Yeah.
the not wanting to get up in the morning, the headaches, the motivation, it's the emotional symptoms. So it's that feeling of helplessness, feeling that you can't, you've got that decreased motivation, that sense
Mm.
of you start to feel like a failure, like you can't cope, imposter syndrome might kick in. Um, and then, you might notice some sort of behavior changes as well. So, we start
Mm.
to withdraw from responsibilities. We might start to isolate ourselves from our colleagues. Procrastination might start to kick in. Um, increased irritability with people, and I think that cynicism will really start to kick in as well. And it's that you just lose interest and enthusiasm for work, something that you used to feel passionate about, and you find, it was you almost saw it as your calling. Um,
Mm.
and you start to feel negative towards your job. You might start getting annoyed with your colleagues, your
Yeah.
manager, the organization you work for as a whole. And again, that just contributes to that sense of isolation as well, and that
Mm.
detachment. So if you feel that you'll wake up in the morning and you just don't want to get out of bed, don't want to go to work, you no longer enjoy the work that you do, yeah, that's a real sure sign of burnout. And
Okay.
and then and then in terms of that um reduced performance,
Yeah.
you will know yourself that you aren't performing to the level that you would like to.
Yeah.
So it's that productivity, it's that difficulty concentrating. You're struggling to motivate yourself. I mentioned earlier when
Yeah.
basic tasks just become difficult. So you're sat there at your desk or wherever, and you've got a really busy day, you're overwhelmed by a to-do list, but you pick up your phone and you scroll through Instagram and Facebook and whatever. You're going out through the news articles on your screen, looking at BBC News and your local news and all this, and you're thinking, what am I doing? I'm so busy, but I'm
Yeah.
doing all these things.
Yeah.
So, these are just sort of
They're the
signs
sorts of signs.
to sort
Okay.
of look out for. Yeah.
I think a lot of people can relate to that. So next, I would ask then, what would you suggest people doing? Is there a starting point? Is there some, you get to the point where you just think, I'm really done with doing all of this, and
Mm.
I need to talk to someone now, or I need to talk to my work. Is there anything you would say to people, recommend
So straight
starting
away,
with?
acknowledging where you are.
Yeah.
is the main point, and think and accepting that, hang on a minute, if I it's nothing, because if you don't change, nothing changes, and you carry on
No.
that path. So acknowledging that you are highly stressed, overwhelmed, that cynicism's kicked in, you're detached from work, your performance is impacted, you wake up in the morning even after you've had a good 8 hours sleep and you still feel exhausted. If you recognize these signs, accepting that this is happening, being kind to yourself and thinking this is that, it's not a reflection on you. It doesn't mean that you can't
Yeah.
cope. It doesn't mean that you failed and all these things that will stop us from talking to someone about it. So acknowledging that that's happened and being kind to yourself that's happening. And if you don't do something about it now at this point, things will become even worse. And then that you say talk. So just start off by acknowledging it yourself and maybe talking to a loved one, a colleague who might, because colleagues might not have spoke about it, but if you're in that boat and it's work related, they're probably in a similar boat. If you've got a
Mm.
supportive manager talking about it, because you will realize when you actually talk about it and open up, you won't get the response that your critical voice is telling you that you'll get. You will realize that support is there. And when you talk to people why you feel the way you do, they'll be sitting there thinking, of course you feel this way. Why are you managing all that on your own? And it could be talking to your partner, so looking at sharing more responsibilities at home. It can be reducing your workload at work. It can be prioritizing tasks. So that is the first point, that acknowledgement that something needs to change and that we're struggling. And then again,
Yeah.
I always think there's like sort of 5 key pillars that you can look at. So from when I've been doing my own sort of reading around burnout, I think you've got self-care, and that's, we've talked about that already, so I won't go too much into that, but that is prioritizing us. We have to put ourselves first. What do you love doing? What do you enjoy? And it isn't selfish, and you have to factor those things in back into your schedule. And if you say I'm too busy for that, what you're effectively saying is I'm prioritizing everything else before me, because that's the reason you're too busy, is because you're prioritizing everything else first. So that's self-care. The boundaries we've already talked about, and that learning to say no. That when you recognize that your capacity is exceeded and conflicting, and you've got all these conflicting priorities, and at some point you're going to
Yeah.
have to stop people pleasing and you're going to have to say no. Establishing when you finish work, and acknowledging, and talk to your colleagues and your manager, and say I've got myself in some bad habits. I'm going to be logging off at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, and that will be it. I won't respond to
Yeah.
emails until the next day. Setting those boundaries. So I think boundaries is a big one. Um, Mindset. So if you think you've got a bit of a fixed mindset where we let those critical thoughts take over, and we're all only human and we're all guilty of it, but if you find that you've got more of that fixed mindset, have a look at what growth mindset is, and start trying to adapt a more growth mindset around being kinder to ourselves, speaking more positively as to ourselves, seeing challenges as opportunities for development and growth rather than setbacks that we ruminate over. So yes, that's personal care, boundaries, mindset, and then time management. So
Yeah.
I think what's important is it's not just about time management, because you could have the best time management in the world. On the planet, you could be the best time management, best at time management. But if you work in a workplace that has unrealistic and unreasonable demands,
Yes.
or it's a particularly damaging workplace cultures where, it can be quite easy to become burnt out regardless of your time management. But when we get recognizing that we're at a stage where we probably are procrastinating a lot, we are detaching from the work, and we're going to do something about it, using certain tools such as the Eisenhower matrix or time blocking. And I'm saying these slowly in case we want to look them up, or one of my favorites, which is the Pomodoro technique. Using some of these tools can really
Yeah.
help just reprioritize. It's about not being overwhelmed by your to-do lists. It's thinking, what are the most important tasks, the biggest tasks, perhaps put them at the start of your day when your energy's at the highest, and get them out. Because what we do is usually we put a to-do list and we start doing the easy stuff first, thinking it'll build momentum, but it doesn't. We get to the end of the day, we feel like we've run out of energy, and the big task we just put off for another day, and
Yeah.
then the deadline's a lot looming and we become more stressed.
Yeah.
So time management's a crucial one. And
Yeah.
then finally, I'd say seek support. Use the
Yes.
support around you. Don't struggle with it on your own. Recognize that you aren't. We said at the start, 90% of people. So actually be one of them people that speak up about it, because if you speak up about it, your colleagues might speak up about it, and everyone will be able to be the big sigh of relief, because you're the
Yeah.
one that said this can't go on. So be proud, be brave that you're going to actually highlight that this can't go on anymore, and this, I'm talking more
Yeah.
work related, and connect with your colleagues, your manager, speak to your family about it, speak to your friends about it. And if it's getting to the point where things are really difficult, because there's some really difficult symptoms of burnout, such as it impacts the sleep. So we don't sleep, we overthink at night time, and then obviously that sleep impacts everything else. We can start to get some quite intrusive thoughts.
Yeah.
You know, I've spoke to people who've said that they've started to have these